Well, first of all, I really appreciate everybody coming out today, and I know this is a busy time of year with pro training camp open as well as ours and everything else that people have going on in their lives. So thank you for coming. Certainly a beautiful day to kick off our preseason camp. It's really great to be back out there on the field with these guys. It was a long, grueling, draining off-season going all the way back to January with the transfer portal. And, there's a lot of what I call macro level problems that as a head coach these days that you are fighting on a daily basis on campus. And so it's really refreshing to move away from that stuff, not that it goes away, but to shift your focus towards your team, your coaching staff, your support staff, and all the micro-related challenges that the next month are going to present. It's a nice, refreshing change. We've got a really, really good bunch of guys. They have worked extremely hard this summer. As we all know, they're young, they're inexperienced, there's a lot of new faces, but their work ethic, their commitment, their buy-in to the culture, their chemistry with each other has been exemplary, and they've really been a pleasure to be around. The feedback from the strength and conditioning staff and what we've been able to observe ourselves as coaches this summer, we do get 2 hours a week on the weeks that we choose to during the 8-week summer program to do skills sessions with our guys. So some of what we did out there on the field today was already installed and already worked on, some of the fundamentals emphasized over the course of the summer. Of course, there is a big change from summer strength and conditioning to a true 2-hour football practice. And some of my feedback to the guys after this first session today was just that. We can be in the best possible shape that we think over the course of the summer, but football practice, putting those helmets on and going through an efficient 2-hour practice is a different type of taxing on the body. For me, this time of year, and as you know, I'm a proud son of a New York City police officer, long retired. My dad is by now, but I really do look at a lot of my own personal work this time of year as being a detective. And what you're looking to do is solve problems. You're looking to see, to step away and to not be as close as that position coach is with his group, take a little step back and maybe see some things a little bit clearer from a little bit more of a 10,000-foot view. And the same goes for all three phases and what they're doing schematically as well. So a lot of questions to answer in the next month. There is absolutely no doubt about that. How quickly can we get this young bunch of guys to mature? How much can they learn? Can they learn the nuances? Can they react the way we want them to in pressure situations, in the situations that pop up in the first game or in any game? A lot of these guys, the last meaningful football they played was in high school, or it might have been in a Division II program in the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference. So we've got a month to get them thinking the way we want them to think and acting the way we want them to act, and to be able to go out there under the lights on September 3rd and perform under pressure like they've been there and done that. So that's our goal, and it's going to be a balancing act of patience along with understanding that the sand is going through the hourglass right now, and it is going to be a race to solve a lot of these problems and answer a lot of these questions and figure out a two deep and figure out what these guys can do best and get them ready to go. One way or the other, we are going to kick off at 7:02 or something like that Thursday night. So there's part of me that says, as the great John Madden once said, don't worry if the horse is blind, load the wagon and go, right? And that's what today was all about. When 9:30 rolled around, practice was going to start whether we liked it or not. So a lot of good things out there, but certainly a lot of things that we will need to correct, and that's going to be an ongoing process here over the next 3 weeks.
How would you evaluate the quarterbacks at position on day one here, and what's sort of the timetable for determining that position going into the season?
Yeah, no real timetable, just to work backwards with your question. We'll make no decision before it's necessary to make it, and hopefully we'll have really, really good clarity to make the best possible decision to put this team in position to be successful. And the answer to that question might be playing two guys. We shall see. I think all of our guys are doing some good things. Elijah's got a really good handle on the offense, and I think the guys really respond well to his leadership. Jason, as we know, is a very talented guy, and you saw flashes of that out there today. Mason has been a really pleasant surprise this summer, and I thought he had just an okay spring. But now you bring in a couple freshman quarterbacks, and the dynamics in that room change, and maybe the sense of urgency changes a little bit. And I noticed during some of our skill sessions that he was making some progress over the summer, and I noticed that again today. So it's good to see the camaraderie in that room. It's good to see how those guys are supporting each other, and it's good to see how the rest of the offense is supporting all of them. And what was there? There was an old wine commercial back in the 80s. You know, I love the 80s. If I could go back to the 80s, I'd snap my fingers and do it right now. But I think it was Ernest and Julio Gallo, and we will serve no wine before it's time, right? That's where we're at with the quarterback position. And if I botched up that commercial, I apologize.
Do you think Tony's past quarterbacks that he's had success with, will how those past quarterbacks play any part to what he's looking for here for a quarterback?
That's an interesting question. I think a good coach always adapts to the skill sets of the players that he has, and you certainly lean back on those past experiences. But we're constantly evolving and adapting and adjusting, and so that's a give and take, right? There are certain non-negotiables that any quarterback is going to have to be able to navigate and control as the leader of the offense. But a good offensive system has a lot of flexibility within it. And one of the things that I'm really excited about, of course, Tony and I worked together at Memphis, and the style of offense that Mike Norvell has run through the years is fairly similar to some of the offenses that I've been involved with, going as far back as my Lehigh, Elon, Ball State days. And I think the beauty of that is that it adapts to the players versus the players having to fit the system. So that was going back to the very first conversation that I had with Tony in mid-December of last year, is that I feel like because your roster is different every year, because the strengths of your players are different every year, you need to have the breadth within your system and the flexibility within your system to evolve to the strengths of the guys that you have. And I do think our system offensively right now is allowing us to do that.
Speaking of your offense, you have to replace 5 offensive line starters. There were a lot of different players in different places and combinations just in practice today. What's your sense of how you're going to sort through all of that?
Yes, we're doing a lot of cross-training out there. Tackles playing guard, and centers playing guard, and guards playing center. And the goal, first and foremost, is to figure out your best 5. And then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 knowing that each of those players may have to play a different position for us to get that best 5 out there on the field, and then making sure what we're doing is simple enough that if we have to change up who that combination of guys is, that they're comfortable communicating and staying on the same page. Cooper Williams is doing a fabulous job. The guys are responding incredibly well to him. I love his demeanor on the field. He is a real teacher. He really connects with the guys. They respond extremely well to him. He pushes them, but he pushes them in a very positive way. And he's very thorough and organized in his planning of practice. There were a lot of mistakes out there today to fix, but I liked the thoughtfulness that we put into day one of our installation and the things that we threw at him. So that will very much be a work in progress, and it could be a work in progress well into the start of the season. We understand that, but I like the demeanor of that group, and I think there's some guys there with some real potential.
The new eligibility rules, the 5th year, and really no more redshirt years anymore, how does that change things for the true freshmen and how you maybe use true freshmen?
Well, first of all, it affected 12 guys on our roster that'll get an extra year of eligibility, so that's nice. Great for them, great for us. The biggest thing it did was simplified playing time now, because in the past, with 4 games to give, a guy could step on the field for literally 1 snap in a game. That happened to Red Murdoch long before we got here. He stepped on the field for 1 snap in 1 game, and that counted as one of his 4 games for that year. Now, if one of these freshmen happens to excel at covering kickoffs, he could cover kickoffs the whole year, and we wouldn't be in a situation where we're worried about burning that red shirt after 4 games for him to simply just cover kickoffs. So it simplifies a lot for us. Really, the only thing that you're going to be limited by now is when you travel to league games and you're allowed to bring 70 players, you're going to have to make some tough decisions on who you bring and who you don't. But home games and out-of-conference away games, now there's going to be some limitations of seats on a plane and seats on a bus and those kind of things. But if you wanted to bring a few more guys to play a role, you could do that now and not be worried about them burning a year. With several young guys, those 10 early enrolled freshmen, we do feel very good about these last 2 recruiting classes that we brought in. So we'll be relying on a lot of redshirt freshmen to play meaningful snaps. You might see some of those guys end up as starters or in the 2 deep. And then some of these true freshmen that a year ago your mindset would have been, okay, pick 4 games and redshirt them. Now you're thinking more, okay, what role can they play? And, if it is a few snaps here and there, no harm, no foul with that.
Josiah Gathens told me about he planned to come back, but he was waiting for a medical red shirt in the off season. Can you speak to how important it is to get him back, and what was that wait like to see if he would get the waiver?
Yeah, we were optimistic when we brought him in from UConn that he had a year at Akron with a substantiated injury that would qualify. The way the waivers had worked in the past, you couldn't submit those until the fall. Our compliance, Kelly Cruttenden, does an outstanding job, and she's very detailed, very hardworking. She compiles all the information and then at the right time submits it. But you pretty much know with a medical waiver whether you have the data and how many games they didn't play in that given year to get it or not. Going back to Jonah's question about eliminating the red shirt, one of the real benefits to this now is a lot of these waivers are going to be gone with it. So one of the challenges as a coach in the past was somebody submits a waiver for a hardship or a medical, and you're at North Carolina and it's granted, and you're at some other school and it's not, or you're at Pitt and it's granted, and you're at Northwestern and it's not. And so a lot of that judgment and decision-making fell on those folks at the NCAA, and at times there were people that were not happy either way the decision fell. By going to a 5-for-5 now, you eliminate a lot of those waivers, and you know, if unfortunately an injury happens, well, you're still on that 5-year clock, and it is what it is. And I think COVID taught us a lot of things as a society. There's a lot we're looking back on now and saying, did we handle it the right way or didn't we? And the same is true in college football. We gave guys another year of eligibility. We started being more lenient with all these waivers. And what happened as a result, we had 24-year-old guys still playing college football. And I think there's a feeling out there now that 5 years is more than fair. You know, adversity does happen. Sometimes injuries happen. I broke my fibula in the middle of my senior year. We say football reflects life, and that is certainly the case. Adversity does come, but hopefully with 5 years, you still get a lot of time to play some very meaningful football, and you should have plenty of time to get a great education.
Does that help Alex Heininger a lot? I know we talked about him a few weeks ago. You weren't expecting him to play, but would this help him get another year?
Yeah, I don't think so, because with Alex, the real issue is he's had so many shoulder issues and so many surgeries. You're thinking more about your long-term health. And football is very important to him. It's very important to his family. He's certainly been a very important member of this team, and he'll continue to play a meaningful role. But, you know, sometimes you just have to look at, can I live the kind of life that I want to live for the next 50 or 60 years? And you know, when you've had that much wear and tear, especially playing a position where every single play you're getting torqued around, different than perhaps if you were a corner or a wide receiver or a specialist or somebody like that.
When you started talking about all the challenges of this season and the new players and all that other stuff, have you changed anything that of your approach because of it, either very specifically or broadly? I mean, you've been doing this a lot of years in a lot of scenarios. Is this one any specifically different that's made you rethink some things?
So the school of coaching that I came from and the nature of the programs that I have been associated with in going on 35 years now, for the most part, has been a mindset where it was always a long-term approach and redshirt as many guys as possible, keep them in the same system for as long as possible, and then eventually play fifth-year seniors and fourth-year juniors that have been in your program, maybe not under the identical coaches, but in the same system, in the same culture. And, you know, those days, like it or not, no longer exist in any college football program. So you really have to take more of a year-to-year approach. That doesn't mean that you coach the guys differently. To the contrary, I think you need to pour into them even more now. You need to invest even more in them. You need to give them everything you've got and build those relationships at an even faster pace than you have in the past, so that everybody can be on the same page come that first game. But you really have to truly look at it as a late January to late August race to get everybody swimming in the same direction and hopefully picking up the pace of that swim as you go. So you have to shift your thinking a little bit. And I realize that as a college football fan, you have to shift your thinking a little bit too, because, that player that you grew connected to, whether you live right here in Western New York and you're coming to practices and you're a season ticket holder and you're seeing these guys at local events, or you're somebody from across the country that still follows what we're doing very closely and reads my email newsletters and feels an attachment to what we're doing, you have to change your perspective somewhat. And football is maybe not as extreme as basketball in that way, where the basketball rosters are changing to an even more radical extent than football rosters are. But you've got to pour into the guys that you have. And hopefully by doing so, you will keep some of them around longer, because they enjoy walking into the building every day, and they believe in the culture, and they believe in the organization and the structure, and they know what to expect from the head coach and know what to expect from the assistants and the support staff. So some things never change, and some things certainly have to evolve and adapt with the unique times that we're in.
Any return specialists impress you so far, especially with how good Victor Snow was at punt returning last year?
Yes, so kickoff return, those guys is still a bit of a competition, I would say, back there. And there's a number of guys that have flashed going back to the spring. Messiah Birch is a guy with potential back there as a kick returner. James McNeil is a guy back there with a lot of potential as a kick returner. Phil Fulmer is working back there. Jalen Andrews is working back there. And then moving to punt returner, Miles Greer has experience and has done a lot of work there in the spring for us. He was a backup last year. He did it at Shepherd College or Shepherd University, I should say. It used to be Shepherd College when he was playing Division II ball. Phil Fulmer's getting reps there as well as a potential punt returner. And then we'll be evaluating some of these new players that have come in on the roster. And we're not afraid to try some different guys there as well. I remember going to camp in 2019 at Memphis and being unsure of who our kick returner was going to be. And about halfway through camp, Mike Norvell suggested we take a look at Antonio Gibson back there. And the next thing you know, he was getting drafted in the 5th round. But that year at Memphis, we actually had 3 different players return kickoffs for touchdowns. So, we're not afraid to mix and match different guys. And, that may be a situation where over the course of the year it could change. Okay, good to see everybody. Thanks for your time.